Hi everyone. So I'm here with Helen today, and just following up really on the fantastic week that we've had, where she's been telling us all about the sales process. And really, I wanted to kind of get Helen in and have a conversation. We were going to jump on the chat yesterday, actually, weren't we, Helen? We were going to jump on after the thing, and then we decided actually to do it as a special bonus thing today and take our time. And really, what I thought was quite interesting is, so Helen's taken us through the sales process and she's shared a lot of really interesting stuff. But now it's time for me to say, but what about, how do I apply that to me? How do we apply it to you? How do we take some of this stuff and let's think through some scenarios about how this is, how we can use it, because it's not just about selling to selling a product, selling an individual, going out and being a salesperson. So much of this is stuff we can use in our day-to-day life, and we probably already use it without realizing it, but there's little things we can do just to kind of boost ourselves and get ourselves so that we're seen, so that we're recognized more. So that's kind of what I thought. Let's jump on and go through some examples to do that. So if the first thing I say is, if you're watching and would like us to talk through a scenario of yours, if there's something that you're thinking, oh, I want to sell myself a bit more, then drop it in the comments, whether you're on replay or live. And well, clearly, if you're on replay, we can't talk it through, but we can jump in, we can kind of answer the questions. But if you're watching live, then please do ask us and we will have a go at that scenario as well, won't we, Helen? Yay.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
So yeah, anyway, let's just start. Helen, how's it been for you? How have you found this week?
Oh, well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for entrusting the group and the community with me. I feel very blessed for that, and thank you very much. Hopefully, people have come away with just, with my suggestions of how we could look at things just a little bit differently. Even the wording, stuff like closing, it just sounds so final, and so, the wording is just very old school. So I don't use it in my practices because I just think it has the opposite effect of what you want. So even just simple things like switching the language that just resonates a bit more. I've really enjoyed it, so I hope everyone else has. And
the thing I wanted to say is well done for yesterday, because you did yesterday's twice.
Oh yeah, so the tech gremlins. We banished them though.
Well, I don't know. They've come to me this morning.
Oh, you've got them.
So my computer decided to do a full reinstall just before this, so that was fun. So I'm going to pass them on to someone else now. So maybe you shouldn't be watching this, just in case you catch them from us. But yeah, I think that's a great example though of how sometimes things just don't go the way we want. Like when we're building relationships, when we're putting ourselves out there, sometimes it just kind of, you think, oh God, and it would be so easy for you to said, oh, well, I'm not going to do that, but actually what you did was you picked yourself up and went, right, I'm going to jump on and do it again. I'm going to make sure people get to hear this, because this is a really important part of the whole process.
Yeah, it is. It's like, well, we say it's the final part, but as we know, it always comes back round again. Nothing's ever final because it's relationships. So even if you think of your best friend, you'll have fallen out at times and said things that you didn't mean, and family, and colleagues and peers, and you tend to usually come back again, even if things are not quite the same. You always still find your way back to helping each other, because as humans, that's what we are. We're quite gregarious. We're designed to build relations. We're not designed to be solo people. We want, from Ego Mind, we want that tribe and that community. So yeah, even when you do in obviously nuance this but mess it up, it's never very rarely a catastrophic mess up, where you're not going to come back together again.
And another example of where the ego mind comes in and tells you, oh, you're the worst person, this is crap, there's no way you can recover from this. And as soon as the ego mind starts to dissipate and settle, you kind of go, well, actually I could do this, or I could do that, and that
maybe
would be
I could do that.
Maybe I'm not that bad. And then and it that I can't remember what you called it, the universal mind kind of comes through.
The higher mind,
she comes through and she whispers to you and kind of goes, well, you could do this. And the ego mind's just so loud, isn't it? And so kind of
it takes over.
But she's there behind, always whispering and kind of going, actually, do you know what? You're okay. You can do it. You can do it. Just stably there in the background. So yeah, I think that I'd almost forgotten about that you'd mentioned that, but it's clearly gone into me.
That's good. And I think that's a really good point, because ego mind will say, I know it's said it to me quite a few times. What's the common denominator here? Obviously, it's you. You know, you're the problem. Now, there might be some reflection to do. You know, there might be something where you think, I could do that better. Yes, maybe I always react like that. Maybe I try something different. But this is happening for everybody. You know, everybody's ego mind is telling them all this stuff. So, and it can't always be you. You know, so I think it's sometimes very self-critical to try and keep you nice and safe in that lovely box that it wants to, you know, keep you in. And so the biggest thing is to get out of that and just take a step forward. Maybe sometimes it isn't always easy to say sorry, or actually, could we talk about that? You know, it's easy to just kind of drift away into the background, but sometimes relationships aren't that easy. You know, and work's no different. Sales is no different. You don't always get it right. You don't get a yes all the time. So, you know, it's something to think about from personal to apply it to your work. There's some synergies there for sure.
Yeah. And it's powerful once you start to see that, isn't it? Just how much impact the thoughts that are going through your head, and it doesn't matter in some ways if you call it the ego mind or whatever it is, but just noticing that some of these thoughts that are going through your head aren't helping you and they're taking you away, and not beating yourself up, because that's another set of ego mind, kind of, that's another ego mind coming in, just beat yourself up, but actually just kind of going, do you know what, at some point this will settle and it'll all feel okay again and I'll recover from it. And that's just powerful stuff. And then so you don't have to do anything when you're in ego mind. You can just kind of let it go and come back to it later. So so the thing I was gonna I thought I'd do, I've got a couple of examples that I thought of that either they're probably going to be a combination of things that I know some of the clients I work with struggle with, but also things that I've come across as well. So I thought, they might be extra hard because of that, because they're a combination of all sorts of things.
That's right, like a challenge on a Saturday.
Just kind of talk through and think about how we might apply the sales process to a specific situation where you're not in sales and you're not deliberately selling. So the first example I thought of was, okay, so you've done your thing. So maybe you've developed some software, or maybe you've kind of developed a new process, or you've kind of come up with you've got a report, and you'd really like people to take it on. You want people to use the software or to implement the process and adopt it into their lives, or to just sit down and read the report, any of those things. So we might not necessarily think of the fact that we need to sell in order to get them to do that. But what we're trying to do is ask them to commit some time and some effort to understanding what we've done. So we've got to sell. It might not be for money, but it's for time. And time for some people is even more valuable than money. So I just thought it might be interesting to just work through that and work through the different stages of the process that you've introduced us to, and think, okay, so what is it that you might be doing? How might you do that? So where would you start with that?
So I would still start with the understanding the stakeholders, because you've got a burning desire and a passion. That's absolutely great, and we want to harness that. But we also have to understand what's happening for them. This might be the worst possible time where they don't have that commodity of time to take on board. And of course, we want to get that idea out because we're passionate and we've got energy around it. And it might be something that is time critical. But we also don't know what's happening for them. So we need to understand the stakeholders and who else needs to be involved, because, of course, line of command, you know, and you might have a dotted line management. So, you know, you want to involve the nucleus. But also, is there someone else that needs to be involved? Is there financial aspects? So maybe we need to have like an initial conversation with finance. How are they, receiving this type of idea? Do they always shoot down and shoot from the hip? Or, you know, are they a little bit more receptive? When's a good time to get these people? End of month, not great for financial people. Start of month, not great, middle of the month expenses, so it's just trying to find out who and when is a good time. I'm just
thinking, let's start with it as being really simple. Let's just start with it as being, you've developed something and you want someone else, just one other person, they're your stakeholder. You want them to take it on and to adopt it. So you've got that one stakeholder, And but you can still do that kind of that BANT analysis that you introduced, the kind of what's their budget. But okay, so maybe they don't need them to spend money, but what's their budget for time? How busy are they right now? That's kind of a great starting point, isn't it? Just noticing, like you say, they could be run off their feet. And while your thing is there ready to go, and you've been working on it for months and months and months, and you're desperate for them to take it on, if they're not ready to, they've not got the time to do it, then they're not, you've got to persuade them, or you've got to leave it until they've got that time. So that's really valuable for me, just thinking about it like that. Oh, okay,
yeah, definitely.
What's their budget? Yeah, how's that work? How much energy?
Like, and time.
I'd also throw in how much energy did they have. If they're completely burnt out, then they're not going to be in a space to kind of take on new ideas, and you're introducing a new idea. So maybe that's, again, it's not the right time to do it, and noticing, well, what's going on for them. So just that one thing. Wow. Okay.
Such a different outcome.
Insight. Yeah.
Aren't it? You know, whereas if you go all, you know, energy, you know, because you're going to be excited about it. You know, I remember when I've had ideas and I'm like, God, I need to tell someone about it. So initially I might tell like a colleague or someone that sits next to me, hey, have you got time at lunch to just go through this, get it out, you know, start explaining it, seeing if it makes sense to them. You know, they might have some input. You don't have to take everyone's input, but, you know, they might have something to share. And then when it's kind of ready and you think, yeah, I think I'm about ready now, I would do a reach out to the initial stakeholders, but certainly just being aware and acknowledging, say it's that end of financial year or something, look, when is a good time for us to discuss this? I think there's benefits for the department, for the customer, for whoever, for you, and understand what N needs, you know, like why would they be bothered? You know, and I don't mean that in a nasty way, but, you know, it's burning for you, it's exciting for you, but how is it going, what benefit is it going to give them? And then we flip that and we put that flashlight on the other person instead of, well, I've got this, I want, you know, it's more, look, I've got this idea and I really want to have a collaborative approach to it. You know, you want their input.
And that's where, if there is a time pressure, so let's say that you've got this thing, and this is a situation I've been in quite a lot of times, is I've developed something, I've got some software, and I want to take it to the next stage. I want to get some investment to take it to the next stage. But in order to do that, I need someone to look at it, start to adopt it, tell me how, what, and give me some feedback on it. And but I know that the end of financial year is coming up, and I know that that there's usually kind of budget for this stuff available at the end of the financial year. And if I miss that, then I won't kind of get that kind of that bonus. So there's a time pressure on it for me to get that feedback from them. But I've got to turn that around into time pressure for why is that timing important for them? So they've got to understand why this thing's important, how it might benefit them, and why it might be good for them if this carries on going. Why is it going to kind of keep? So what is it that's going to help them if this thing happens quickly? And why should they prioritize it above everything else that's kind of on their plate? So that's kind of, like you say, turning the flashlight. That's such a powerful metaphor. Just keeping on thinking, okay, this is what I want, but what about them? What's going on for them? What's in their world? How can I find out more about that? And then, I don't like saying use that, but it is you're kind of using the information, taking the information on board, and then adapting your message according to what's happening to them.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And that's how, when I look at how I went about things in my infancy, it was felt very wounded at times. I was like, well, why not? This is excellent. And I know that they knew it was, you know, that well, of course, it's a great idea. You know, this is, of course, what we want to be aiming towards. But I can't take that on. I'm at capacity. And I always, because I'd never sort of felt my capacity level, you know, for me, I was like, well, I don't really know what they're saying. And then when I became a manager and I had more stresses and challenges, I was like, I get what they're saying. You know,
I haven't got that headspace to think about it.
And so sometimes it's just you can't relate because you've never been in that position before.
Yeah.
You know, and then when you're like, I get what they were saying, and there's a little bit more like empathy for the situation.
Yeah.
But when I was like 16, 17, and I was working in a call center, I had an idea to like redo the system for how we log calls. You know, I was an estate agent. I had a different system for logging the keys because we were always mixing them up, you know, and people were just busy all the time. They didn't have time for me to just come and, you know, you know, be so excited about it and everything. So we don't want to dull that down, because that's your passion and you're passionate about things. But yeah, we have to get those needs and why it's important for them and the organization or the client. And of course, timelines. Some things it's urgent, some things that I just want your input because I want to, you know, and set it out.
Yeah.
You know, by this time next year, I'd like to be looking at it like this. You know, what do you think? They might pull it forward. This is excellent, but actually there's some budget that you don't know about that we could put, you know, so it's by sharing the information, they are aware of the opportunity as well. Because it's in your head, you might think everybody's aware of it and you're completely up to speed with things. But again, taking it right back to the beginning, walk them through how you got there, because they are hearing this for the first time,
and,
you know.
And that's making sure that the story you're putting around it it educates them. It's not just jumping straight into the kind of, I've got this. It's kind of actually explaining coming back to what needs are you bringing, what benefits is it bringing. And there's something that I was going to say earlier, actually, which sort of just popped into my head now, which is it's this kind of I've put this applying the sales process to you, and I've talked about and we titled this week selling yourself, using the sales process to sell yourself. And actually I'm kind of going back on that, and I want to kind of put that out there, is that we're not ever selling ourselves, we're selling what we can do for people. We're not, it's not me that you get, you're selling, you're getting my skills. And so it might be that when we're talking about applying the sales process to you, it's the things that you've done, or it's the things that you can do for people that you're selling, not you in your entirety. I'm not sale. So like, you can't have my soul, sorry.
No, that's not for sale. So it's skills, knowledge, experience, time, capacity, possibly your budget, you know, possibly your team. People might need to, you know, borrow members of the team. They might need to borrow your expertise. So, you know, these are all commodities that we don't always think of as in sales, because sales is usually something tangible, like a product or a service, but it's always an outcome that it delivers.
And when you bring it back to that, there's less pressure on it for you to do it in the way you think it should be done. So just that's what triggered it for me, was when you said about that kind of, sometimes you need to be open to them saying, well, that's the way you think we should do it, but actually I've got this other bit of information, which is much more about that relationship building. How do we connect with people? How do we kind of understand their world? Because in their world, they might know all these other things. And it makes sense for them to say, well, I can see the skills you're bringing. I can see what you can do, but I can see how you can apply it much more over here. Or we can take that bit of software or that process, and if you add in these other bits that I know that are going on, then it could be so much better. And sometimes that can feel like, but that means I'm going all the way back to the start. I'm going to have to change it. I'm going to have to do this. And going back to what you were talking about in the when we're I want to say pitching our idea, but giving your offer and putting your offer out there, sometimes you have to go all the way back to start again, don't you? And kind of go, I didn't know that bit about the whole thing. I didn't know that this was the context, or that was happening over there. If I'd have known that, I would have done it differently. And sometimes actually it's then saying, well, it's better to rip it up and start again. After you've spent months developing this piece of software, I know this is
so we're hitting home, you know.
Some of this software that I worked on right at the beginning of my my career, and it was an internal project that we got a bit of funding for, and it was a test thing, and it's a slightly different example, because so people liked it, people loved the little demo, and it showed basically a car would do a U-turn, and you could show that it detected a car doing a U-turn as abnormal behavior. So the application was security guards watching CCTV. It would flag up and say something abnormal's happened here, but it wasn't just the U-turn. It would do if someone parked in the wrong place, nobody's parked there before, so this is abnormal. So I'm kind of digressing, but we did this and we knocked it up, and it was like, everyone loved it. I thought it was amazing, but it didn't have all the functionality. And every time we had those discussions, people say, well, can you do this? And we're like, well, not in this, but we'd have to kind of restructure it, and we'd always assumed we would. but actually we just kept on building on it and building on it, building on it. We wanted to rip it up and start all over again, but nobody would give us the budget to do it as we went along. So yeah, I've digressed, but that learning about that piece of software is the thing that, and how to get that software out there was the thing that really taught me about the sales process, the kind of keeping on demoing it, showing it to people, listening to what they said, taking that on board. Right, how can we adapt it now? Does this market want it? Is it security, or could it be applied somewhere else? And it actually disappeared into non-existence in the format I was working on it, but it got other people funding to then go and do other bits of software off the back of it. So yeah, rambling around there, but it's an interesting one to then apply it to.
Yeah, and I picked up on that, the interdependence, because we always think independence is we strive for independence. We want to be self-sufficient and do everything. But interdependence, how much better is it sometimes when we get a few more brains on it? Yeah. And that can sometimes feel a little difficult in the sales process, because I've had it before where people are like, it's my customer, but they buy maybe different revenues, and you've had to introduce other people, and you're like, oh, I hope they don't mess it up. And but we've got really nice relationship here. I don't really want to, what will they do? Will they then take that? And that was my work, and and so there was all that going on. But really, what is best for that client? Who are they best to speak to? And also, sales is not a linear process, and this is really hard to demonstrate, because even though you've put it as a circle, or we might have it as a line, or sometimes you see it as a vortex type thing. It's not. It doesn't follow that. Sometimes you then have to go back again. Sometimes you go back and then you go forward. But those steps are generally what is needed before someone says yes and they gain commitment. But it can happen in an all like arse about tit way. There's no. Doesn't always follow that nice linear. And some people have come back and said, well, I did the introduction call, and then I did this, and then I did that, and nothing, and then I had to go back and do that. And it was, the process doesn't work. And I'm like, that is the process. And so we can sometimes do a bit of a disservice by writing it out like that, because it doesn't flow like that all the time.
So and it is, if you bring it back to, it's all about relationships. Well, relationships aren't linear.
No.
And if you think about yourself when you're making a decision, you don't make a kind of, right, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do that, and then and you kind of think that you do. In order to make this decision, I need to know this, and this, and we kind of create this linear plan in our head. But that information doesn't ever come in that way, and we might find we uncover something, and then, oh, actually, no, I've got to go off on this tangent now and explore this bit. And then, oh, what was it I was going to do? And so we kind of go all over the place in our heads. And if we're doing that, then the other person's doing that too, and knowing that we're both going around in circles. So no wonder it's not a linear process.
And that's why it's so important to have those check-in points to ask, is it okay if it seems like I can help? Would now be a good time? Would it be all right if I shared my offer with you? Because if they're like, actually no, because what you've done so far is great, but we need to go and do a load more stuff before you even think about that, because you've given us enough to go and think about. Now, that for a salesperson, sometimes that can be like, I've talked myself out of a sale, but you haven't. You've given them a wider viewpoint than what they were looking at, and if you'd have gone down that route and done the quote and pushed and everything, they probably wouldn't have made the commitment, because they would have got to that stage anyway. So it's. But I mean, people have all different viewpoints on that, but I do think flashlight, and when it starts to feel a bit icky, and a bit like, oh well, I just don't. Oh, something feels off. Who is this conversation for? Who is this phone call or email for? Is it for you, or is it for them?
And
what's happening for them first? And then yes, you might still need something, but just be mindful of what's going on for them first.
And so the bit that I know, if I'm just thinking back to what people struggle with, very often it's when we talk about selling yourself, it's the kind of saying I'm good at this, or and that's the offer, isn't it? It's kind of saying, oh, I can do this for you, or and when people talk about selling themselves, it's an implication that we should be out there saying, I'm amazing at this, I can do this, and I'm brilliant, and rather than and I guess the reason for that is that because sometimes the opposite is that we put ourselves down. If someone says, oh, I thought you were really good at that, and you kind of go, not really sure. I don't, and you kind of
I know me, you know, yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that selling yourself is saying, I'm fantastic at this, or did you pay attention to me? It's like you say, it's turning it back on the other person, developing a relationship, and knowing that, and when they say something like they've got a need for something, it's being able to say, I can help you with that. Oh, I've done something with that. And it's not the kind of icky saying me. It's being willing to offer your services and have a go at something and say, do you know what? If you've got that challenge, then I think I might be able to help, or I think I might know someone that I could pull together with that help. And when you do that, when you're really addressing someone's needs, it doesn't feel icky. It's kind of like, oh, and the ickiness, well, the bit that might come through is that the kind of, can I really help? Is that something I can deliver on? But just being willing to say, do you know what? I might be able to do something here. Can we talk about it? Can we talk about how and that's not pitching in the same way. It's not pushing yourself on someone. And that for me is the how to sell yourself element of all.
I think that's it. And when you look through the sales process, understanding stakeholders, building relationships, you've built a nice relationship, they've seen you a little bit, you know, or they might not have done, but you've positioned yourself as a trusted advisor, a safe pair of hands, someone that they can instill their trust. And all you're doing is asking them exactly what we say sales is: engage with you and your offer. And your offer is your commodity. So sometimes it's not a physicality like a product. It might be your time, your expertise, your skills, your knowledge, your experience, your team. You know, you might be offering someone in your team to go and help. Well, I actually can't help, you know, even though I'm in sales, but that person absolutely specializes in that product. So if you need an hour of so-and-so's time, let me facilitate that. You know, and so you don't have to, like you say, you don't have to be the star all the time, but you definitely are that facilitator. And once people see that,
you being that helpful person is way more powerful than someone knowing, oh yeah, they can do all these amazing things. You being the person that they go to, you become really useful, and they keep coming back to you, and that's where the value comes, is that they know they can come to you and they'll get something fixed. And there's an element which I don't really want to touch on because it could go into whole, which is then how do you put a value on that, and how do you kind of put your offer in and know what pricing to put on it and stuff like that, which is, I mean, that for me, that comes from having the conversations and learning and getting it wrong and stuff like that.
And we've just talked about that as well, haven't we? And there might be something that you do because it leads on from something that you've just done. And you think, well, that seems like the next logical step. Higher mind, you know, just do that. Just what, you know, if you pitch it wrong with pricing or whatever, or you just get it slightly wrong, you've taken a step and you've learned something.
I think the worst relationship,
waiting for perfection, you know. And if you've got that relationship, then you can go back and say, I made a mistake, it's actually this.
Well, if you've got a good relationship, they'll say, no, that's too expensive, but can you do it for this? Or this is the budget I've got. But you've already know something about their budget, but you've kind of got that groundwork in place, which helps you to make the decision. But so I'm conscious of time because we've already been chatting for half an hour. I don't know where the time's gone. Need some breakfast at some time today. But so there was one other scenario that I thought would be useful to talk through, which is much more about selling yourself, which is the interview process. So when you go in and you've got a period of, let's say, an hour or a couple of hours to make an impression and get the job. So you've got to sell yourself. And this is, for me, it's a slightly different scenario because there's not as much you can do to build the relationships. But even while I'm saying that, I'm thinking, well, but you can understand the stakeholders before you go into an interview. You can go and check them out. You can figure out who's going to be in there, what are they interested in, what's their online profile tell me about them, who do I know that knows them that could tell me what their needs are, and what's the needs of this job. You've got the job spec, so you've got some information there, so you can do some sort of stakeholder analysis, understanding who you're going to be, but building those relationships is all really, and unless you've got a way of talking to the people beforehand, it's all in the interview.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it can be. And I've hired people because of how they've been, you know, especially in a sales role. I want people to follow up clients. And so they were following me up directly, which was great. They got my mobile number, they rung me. Hey, I know you said you made a decision on Friday. You know, roughly what time will you let me know? You know, other people are like, wow, too pushy. I'm like, not in a sales role. You know, they want people to be building those relationships. You want people to be reaching out. So that was a tick, you know, and I would say, you know, even, you know, same with following up. 42% of people don't follow up opportunities. An interview is an opportunity. I wouldn't see any hiring board really that would take huge offense to someone that would reach out and say, you know, I'm really interested, you know, or I'm really interested. But there was just a little bit that I wasn't sure about. Would it be possible for me to come in and sit with the team and see what actually happens? Or come in and ask a few more questions or get a Zoom call? You know, that shows that you really care. It doesn't show that you don't know what you're talking about. So it shows that you care and you've got a gap. And
you want to make sure that you're the right fit for the job. So
because it's two-way. And quite often in interviews, what I do see is, again, likening it to the sales process, a lot of gushing, you know, like if I can do this, me, and it is your time to shine. That's probably the one time that if you know, you absolutely sell yourself in that interview. But again, just making sure that you're structured, making sure what question did they ask? Right, okay, how do I answer that? You know, and linking those features and those benefits. So you wanted this, I can give you that, and then that would benefit from X, Y, and Z, you know? And so you're kind of doing that sales process.
Giving as many giving an example for how you can demonstrate that you can do that. But knowing, but bearing in mind and checking in with someone, there's no harm in saying, did I answer your question? Is that what you were asking me for? And so often I've been an interviewer and someone has kind of misunderstood the question and just waffled because they're nervous, their ego mind is playing in. And let's be honest here, as an interviewer, my ego mind plays in as well, because I want to find the best person. I want to really get to know this person and make sure, but I want them to like us. I want them to work with us. I want them to kind of take the offer if I decide that they're the right person. So that's an example where there might be two ego minds at play. But as an interviewer, okay, try and settle, right, what's going on for them? Look, they're going off on a tangent here. I've asked them a question. They're not answering the question. How do I stop them and bring them back? Because there's only an allotted time. How do I bring them back to answer this question so that I can decide whether or not they're right for the job? And it can be really hard to do that sometimes. And if you are being interviewed and you show that respect for the interviewer and sort of say, I think that's what you're asking for. Before I carry on, do you want me to give you another example?
Absolutely, it's a check-in point, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a conversation. Yeah,
I love that actually, because we ask as well, would it make sense now if I just explained how I help like-minded people? Because what you've described is actually what we do day in, day out. You know, and would it make sense now if I did that? Or would you, you know, if we've got a half an hour appointment, we're at 25 minutes, how much time have you got? Would it make sense, or should we separate those conversations out? You know, but we're fearful because we might lose our opportunity. You're not going to lose the opportunity if you've got a start of a relationship, you've got a need, they've got a need, and you've got something that could potentially fix that. There's always going to be people that will look for that wider opportunity, you know. So yeah, I think that's really important. And matching products and services, you know, matching your, you know, their need to your commodities.
And this is where
really important.
It's one of the things I was taught, which I have used this a couple of times actually in interviews, which is at the end of the interview, when they say, have you got any questions? One question you could ask, and I have asked, is there anything that you have concern about? Are there any concerns that you have about me for this role? So instead of you kind of asking a load of questions about kind of what's going on, and if you've got questions, ask them, because that shows your interest in the role. But there's this kind of, when you ask that question, are there any concerns you have? Is there anything I've not addressed? That gives them the chance to just say, actually, do you know what? You answered this question, I missed that, and you didn't explain this, or it's putting it back to them and saying, I'm interested in what you need out of me in order to put this to make this decision. And do you know what? I got the job off. Yeah, I got both of those jobs off the back of those. And one of those was going into an environment where I knew no one in the room. So it was completely off the kind of cold calling type of thing.
That is an amazing question to ask.
It's scary asking it though.
Absolutely, there must have been a lot of noise
and it's kind of like, but just allowing it, and in some ways you don't necessarily even, and this is you may not answer it there and then. That might then be your follow-up. That might be your thing that you then go away, think about it, notice that you've missed this, you send an email follow-up, and that, like you say, it's the follow-up of the sales call. It's just saying, do you know what? I thought of something else. And remember, this is me. I'm here. I'm listening to you. I'm interested in making sure that I can fulfill this role.
Absolutely. And then what are the next steps? Who's going to ring who? Quite often we go out, we're like, yes, that was really good. That was a really nice connection. Oh, great. And you tell your friends and family and they're like, right, when will they let you know? Oh, I don't know. And even the agents sometimes don't know. So I always think, like when you're looking to make your decisions, ask them, because the agent might not always know if you're going through, recruitment. Always that, when are you looking at filling the role, and how's the role come about? Because it might be driven from usually there's two places that businesses drive from, either growth or panic. And that's from any sort of commercial point of view. And people are no different. So they're either got to have oh my God, we need to get new people in now, and train them up. Or we're going to start gradually looking at our capacity, and we know that role takes a year to bed in. If we wait a year, then we're 2 years out, so we need to recruit now. So where's that role born from? Is it growth or panic? What is it? And so again, we're understanding what that need is, what that requirement, what that timeline is,
and how likely they are to just appoint someone. And if they appoint in panic, there's a strong chance they appoint the wrong person. So if you really like it, then it's worth keeping that relationship alive, to be there ready for them when it falls apart.
Because you never know. And I've made really poor recruitment decisions because I've had my back up against the wall. And I haven't wanted to be in that position. But you could always get a perfect ride, do you? And so, when I have, I'm like, I'm not sure if this is right, actually. And then it's flushed out that it's not, and people have left for whatever reason. Right. Who do I remember? And you want to box yourself as that person that's like, she was really good, actually. Maybe we missed something here. And it's hard for us as recruiters to go back and say, we made a mistake, but can you come back?
If you followed up and kind of connected on LinkedIn, or kind of made that, it's kind of like, oh, I can reach out to them quite easily. So
made it nice.
If there is something that you go for, like you say, you just keep that connection, keep the relationship going, and then you're the one walking into the interview where you know them. You can actually tell them, oh, well, this is the challenge you've got, and this is how I can address it. Absolutely. So it's such. I think going through it like this, there's so many elements of the sales process that are just so relevant to everything that we do. But coming back to what you're saying, it's relationship building. It's kind of connecting with people, seeing it in the long term, keeping on, showing up, showing them what you can do, reminding them how you can help them, and not necessarily not pushing yourself, but just kind of saying, can I be helpful here? And letting them do that. And there's an element where you can feel like people are taking advantage of you. So you need to know your boundaries, where you kind of say, actually, do you know what? In order for me to help you, you need to do this for me.
Yeah.
That's your offer. That's the thing.
Yeah. It's based on two ways, building relationships on, or I just give everything all the time. You might have to take the first step when sometimes you don't want to. They should, I shouldn't have to. Well, by whose expectation? And I'll tell you now, expectations, and draw on this from your own experience, but expectations are our biggest cause of suffering, 100 million%. It should have gone like this. I should have done that. There's no way they should have behaved like that. I can't believe this has happened. This is not how it was supposed to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely in the root of our own suffering there, by whose expectation? Where did that come from?
Suffering doesn't help us to move on and learn. No. And when we're in that place, that low place, we're not learning. We think we're learning. We think we need to struggle around and find out what we should learn. But actually, it's when that disappears, when the ego disappears, that we can go, oh, that's what I need to learn. And so
there's always a learning in
there and beating ourselves up about it just doesn't help at all.
No, and there will be learning in all of this. And like I said before, the first time you start to try this sort of stuff, you know, you might be a bit crap at it, and it's okay, because I was as well. I was rubbish. I was so bad at it, you know, but how, when you're changing something, how, and you've never done it before, maybe this is all new to you, what, you just going to go out and just nail it and be perfect? I mean, when does that ever happen in life?
Yeah.
And so the only way we learn is by doing and by taking action. And that is exactly how I help my clients, because I'm there like making them accountable every week on our weekly calls. You know, we're working through things, because it takes time.
And helping them see what they've done as well, and not dismissing that too.
Yeah. I only did this. You know, it's like, hang on, you did what? You know, like, let's just celebrate that. You know, that's fantastic.
So I'm going to bring that back around now, because you've mentioned your clients. Because so if someone wants to work with you, I think you mentioned this yesterday. I don't know if it came back in the.
If I did it again the second time, yeah.
So if someone wants to work with you, then what can they do? So we will definitely share the links. They can book a one-on call, because Helen is all about, she walks the walk. So if you're interested in what Helen's been talking about, and you just want to have a half-hour conversation and find out how she can help you, she'll have a conversation with you. If you want to know what it then costs and have that conversation about, and wanted to make the offer, then she will do so. But it's not going to be a pushy sales call, because that's, despite being called the sales lady, she goes about it in this authentic way about building relationships, knowing it's right for you. So they can book a call, can't they, Helen? They can.
Yes, yeah, we'll put the Calendly link in there. Yeah. I'm on the group, so if you want to message me, direct message me. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Helen Tebay. And then you can share the link. Direct. Yeah, I'll share the link as well.
And then, so what do you offer for people? So if they want to work with you one-to-one, how does that work? What's your best thing that you do?
So we will. So we'll work on a 3-month basis. I don't do anything less than 3 months, just because that is the time that I know is going to take for you to really embed this and really move your neural pathways to thinking about things different. It takes about 65-70 days to change how you identify with something. So there's no point in me saying, I will just do 6 weeks or 4 weeks or something, because it just isn't going to have the desired outcome. Or if you're sitting there thinking, you know, my sales talk is pretty low here, kind of like how you structured that. I really want to apply the sales process to me personally, because I want to get here, and we'll talk about your individual outcomes. We'll set some directional milestones for you, and we'll get you to, you know, thinking about how you're going to take action on getting towards that goal. Mainly, you know, around selling and sales, but it doesn't have to be an actual commodity or product. It can be about you as well. And so it's a 3-month basis, and it's £1,800.
Okay. And how often do you chat to people in that? How often?
So it'll be a weekly call. You know, a day that suits you, and we'll do it every week, and it's around about an hour and a half.
Okay.
You know, if we're obviously going into something,
it's an hour a week check-in over 3 months, which will help you kind of get out there, either sell what you're selling or sell yourself, and kind of
absolutely,
and kind of really apply this process. But also, I think it's the getting to grips with our mindset, our state of mind, and understanding that's the accountability bit. That's the celebration thing, starting to practice that. And then that gives you the power to be able to go out and do it yourself, isn't it? So
everything just slots into place. Once we start identifying, that was the biggest shift for me. And that's when I saw my results. And yes, the financial results for sales, for budget, for, you know, sales KPIs like conversions and, you know, budget, you know, revenue and profit. But I saw them just go up, and they didn't just go up a little bit, they hockey sticked. Because my mindset changed, and I got comfortable with it. If you're at ease with something and your energy's right, you're going to be more aligned and passionate about it. You're going to run through walls for it, and I'll be there with you. You know, I'm all in for my clients. You know, if they've got goals that they want to meet, let's go and get you there. You know, let's go and do it. But you're the one taking the work. You're the one taking the action. So it is not for people who are not going to do that. You know, when people say, when does it not work? When does the sales process not work? When you don't show up, you don't. I mean, and I have had people that have kind of showed up, and they're like, well, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And well, what did you learn from that? Because there will be some learning in it, and we take action, and we tweak it, and
it's
we're not just going to get it right, you know.
It's the keeping on showing up to the week on week despite sometimes not doing what you said you were going to do, or sometimes not kind of getting stuck, because that keeping on showing up helps you kind of uncover, well, in which case, what's holding me back? What are the challenges? So that's cool. So if you want to, and this is where I'd say, take the half-hour opportunity, have a chat with Helen about that if you're interested, but you don't have to go for that. She's happy just to have a conversation. It might be that it's something that you just want to find out about it now, and then come back to it kind of later down the line, and there's not going to be that pressure either. But
no, absolutely.
And now you know a bit more about what she does, so yay.
Yeah. Cool. And I could talk for hours on sales, so you know, we have to keep me strict to 30 minutes, you know. But yeah, no, I'd love to be able to speak to you all individually about what you've taken from that resonates. So I'll put the links in, pop a call in, and we'll see if it makes sense. Like saying you want to take things further, we can have a separate conversation around that. But yeah, I've loved it. Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for all your work and sharing. It's been amazing. So brilliant. And we'll see everyone. Yeah, drop, as I said at the beginning, drop any other questions, any other scenarios in the comments. We're happy to kind of have a go at them and play with them and see what we can uncover. So apart from that, go and enjoy your weekend, and see you later. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.